Hey, we are working on Unit 4, Lesson 11 today, Functions Make. So you're going to be able to finally take all the things that you've been learning about functions and put it into an app. So you will want to navigate to code.org, Lesson 11, Bubble 2, and also on Google Classroom, I have an activity guide. Now, the activity guide is not something that you have to turn in. Like what I'll be grading is the app that you actually make, but you have access to the activity guide there. And what it's going to do is just really walk you through step by step of how that you want to think about this app and how to create the app in every step of the way. So looking at the activity guide, step 1, you want to try the app. So on Bubble 2, you are given step 1 instructions. There is an app that's already there, it's already functioning, and you know from the last time that you had to do a make, the last 2 times, that you are going to have to make it work just the same way. So try all the different options, pay attention to what's happening on the screen when you move the slider, when you choose an item from the drop down. When does the screen update? What happens, like what's the on event probably going to be there? What happens if you choose lavender and Lucida Sands from the drop down menu? From the drop downs, try choosing light green, moving the slider until you receive feedback. So really, you're just getting a lot of experience with this app and trying to think of the behind the scenes code and how is this app working based on what I've already learned about code. While you're looking at that, it would be a good idea to actually jot some of that stuff down, and you can do that here on the activity guide. Now, if you want to access this activity guide for yourself, you are going to have to make a copy of it. So this is just posted for you to view, but if you click File and make a copy, then you can have a copy for yourself. But again, I'm not asking you to turn this in, so you don't have to. The step 2 is going to be to plan. So they're going to lay that out step by step too. What are the variables? What kinds of information on this app are changing? What are updating? What values are being updated? What new post-its are going into those baggies? So think about that. And they've got a couple there of examples, maybe color and font family. And then you're going to describe what exactly is this variable storing. So is it storing a number, a string, true or false? Is it coming from an input? Where is it getting the value for that? So for example, the variable name color is updating when the user selects a background. So that's probably coming from an input or a user interface element. Then going to conditionals are if statements. An if-else if statement is used to check if certain options have been selected, and then it's going to do something based on whether that if statement is true or false. So you need to set up the conditional below using the variables that you created in I guess it was still step 2, but in the variables section. So here's some examples. If the color is a certain color and the font family is a certain font family, then we're going to do this. If not, then we're going to do this. Or you're going to check again if we want to if or else if statement. And we're going to do something else, and then we're going to do something else. So think about what's happening on Bubble 2. What is happening based on when I choose this versus I choose this, and try to fill in your conditional section here based on what you observe. Then move on to functions. Consider what should be included in a function that updates the screen. So that's probably what you're going to definitely want. It's an app. We're going to update the screen. So what all things will need to happen every time you update the screen? And you're going to write out your plan below. You could just write it in text. It does not have to be in code and using proper syntax. Just say it's going to, update the variable, change the color, whatever. Think about what elements on the screen will need to be updated using the variables. So we said that those variables are there because they're going to need change. So make sure that they're included in the update screen. Does the conditional above belong in the function? Do we want to actually check if something's true or false every time we update the screen? Like if the score is a certain amount on a game, you would want to check that every time. And then if it is, then you would want to set the screen to the game over screen. So that's an example, but see how that might work out in this app. And then when will that function need to be called? Here is the typical update screen pattern so that you can see you're going to set your variable and then you're going to update the screen. And then every time the on event happens, we update the variable, update the screen. Another on event, update the variable, update the screen. And then your function is down at the bottom. So that visual might help you to plan out what you want your update screen function to do. Next, inputs. What input am I asking for from my user? And so currently, if you are on Bubble 2 and you mouse over any of these areas, you'll see that, well, there's quote input and there's quote output, there's font family, color input. So where am I asking my user to give me some input? I'm asking them to type something and choose two different drop downs. Maybe you could even count the font size slider as an input, right? And you're going to say, what is the action and what is the result? So if they input something in the quote input, then the text on the screen appears one character at a time as it is typed. If they change the font family input on the drop down, then what's it doing then? And so you can really lay out what exactly is happening, and then these will all be turned into on events. Step 3, write your code. Use your plan above. Remember that we always start with creating our variables. We put our functions down at the bottom, and the on events just can happen in the order, whatever order you want. But make sure that in general, everything outside of a text block needs to be in the order that it should run. And then inside of the text block, everything should be in the order in which it should run. It's okay if you are using an on event anywhere in your code, because what's inside of that is only going to run when the user does something, and it will run every time the user does that thing. And then a function, of course, can be, you can call it anywhere in your code, and you know that it's going to skip down to the bottom and run whatever's inside that function block. Steps to follow: create all the variables, give the variables a starting value, create a conditional that checks if various options are selected, and then you can see there are more steps there. Once you've finished, you're going to submit it. But before you submit it, you might want to double check this rubric. And obviously, we're aiming for the extensive evidence column. We want to make sure that everything is functioning properly, that things are as organized as they can be, that we've used functions everywhere that we can use functions. Obviously, there are no errors, and that we've included everything that app on Bubble 2 has included. So whenever you're ready, you can go on over to Bubble 3 and actually create your code. Highly recommend that you go through the activity guide line by line rather than just winging it and getting started. You are not an advanced programmer yet, so do it the way that you need to do it in order to really build the skills. And then maybe next time you'll be advanced enough to be able to start from scratch and wing it, so to speak. Remember those when to call a function levels, never after, during, before. So you may be an after right now. You're going to remember as you've already doubled a section of code that oh yeah, I could use a function for that. Maybe you're at the during stage, but right now we're trying to practice being a before person. We want to think about beforehand where we're probably going to need a function and go ahead and create that function from the get-go. So if you need any help on that, obviously I am here to help, and so are your fellow classmates. And all you need to do is just send me an email and I will help you out.